Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. I have also heard this game called Xenoblade Chronicles Cross. I think it is just awesome that we now have all of the Xenoblade Chronicle games on the Nintendo Switch. I have been a huge fan of Xenoblade Chronicles ever since I played through Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I have since gone through all of the numbered games, but Xenoblade Chronicles X has been locked on the Wii U for a very long time, so I'm glad that they finally made a definitive version for the Nintendo Switch. It wasn't too crucial that you play Xenoblade Chronicles X compared to the main numbered games, because this one is not directly tied to 1, 2, and 3. Now, I say not directly, but I didn't say not at all. There are several nods towards the numbered Xenoblade Chronicle games. It's kind of like Final Fantasy in the way that you always have this character named Van Dam. There's always this race of these creatures called Nopons, and Nopons are kind of like the comedic relief of the game. But rather than taking place on these weird parallel universes like in the numbered Xenoblade Chronicle games, this one actually takes place like in our universe, specifically the year 2054. In this game, there is a band of aliens who really hate humans and have come to destroy the Earth, and so humans have to evacuate Earth to go find a new home. You may be thinking, I don't think we'll have a giant spaceship in order to evacuate humans in the year 2054, and I thought the exact same thing for most of the game, but it is explained at a later time. But as far as like tech goes, these humans have these giant mech suits called skells, and yes, you will be able to pilot and fly around your own skell much later in the game, but it is a possibility. We'll get more into skells in a little bit, but essentially, as you are in this giant ship called the White Well, the aliens have come back to attack you, and so you basically crash land on this strange planet called Mira. Where the White Well crash landed, or the main central human part of the White Well crash landed, we have now reformed as New LA, and New LA basically acts like your central hub where you're going to be stocking up on inventory, talking to crew members, gathering up all of your side missions, doing your heart-to-heart talks. And this is one of the main differences, lore and plot aside, one of the main differences between the other Xenoblade games is because you are always going to be returning back to this centralized location, compared to other Xenoblade games where it's all about going on this big epic journey. You are starting from your hometown. It's like the basic hero's tale. You start in your basic hometown and you are traveling across the land, encountering new environments and new people and new creatures until you get all the way to the other end of the planet. That's not how it is here, though. You're constantly just going out on missions and then you're returning back to home base. And I definitely like the other Xenoblade games more in this aspect, because I like the aspect of going on this big epic quest, this big epic journey, rather than always returning to this centralized location. I think it's one of the reasons that I like Avatar: The Last Airbender compared to Korra. But I will say you definitely get familiarized with New LA. New LA is split into several different districts. You got like the residential district, which is more houses. You got the industrial district where we're working on mechs. Then you have like your shopping district with restaurants and cafes and clothing stores. And then like you have your main, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was like basically where the politics happen. And so as you are playing through the game, you will have new interactions with the residents in New LA. And you're actually going to be spending the majority of your time doing all of these little side missions. So there's essentially like 4 different types of missions that you'll be playing through in this game. You have your main missions. These are like your story missions, and there's actually only 12, and then the definitive edition added a 13th. One thing that I'm not a big fan of about this game is the main missions, the story missions. They're just too far and few between, and they don't actually last that long. Like the majority, on average, I would say these main story missions only last between 10 to 20 minutes if you already have access to the fast travel point that's nearby the destination you're supposed to go to. And so realistically, as far as like the main story goes, you're gonna get maybe like 3 hours of it, not including this last final 13th story mission that they added. No, the majority of your gameplay, I mean, this game took me around 50 hours to finally roll the credits and decide that I've played enough of it. It's going to be these side missions. And there's actually like 3 different types of side missions, side quests, I guess you can call them. The first one is like basic missions, and these are basic fetch quests, little things like that. I kind of took these as, hey, if you're in the area and you see that you need to kill 5 of these things, you might as well go do them. Or, hey, if you're in the area and you need to collect 10 of these materials, go do that. But they're not really, they don't have any kind of story. They don't really have much dialogue attached to these. Navigating through some of these side missions can be fairly frustrating as well. For instance, some of them require you to gather a certain resource or material, and the drop rate for these materials is super low, especially if you don't know like what appendage to take off an enemy. Other times for some of these side missions, it's like, oh, this enemy that they want you to go kill only appears at a certain time of day. And it's not like other Xenoblade games where you can just automatically change the time of day. You have to go to certain locations in order to do that. There are other missions as well that say, hey, you need this crew member in your party, or hey, you can't have this crew member in your party. That being said, I did appreciate this thing called Follow Ball, which basically creates a trail that shows you exactly how to get to the destination where the mission is. It's not always 100% reliable, but it is definitely better than just a marker on the map, especially if there are multiple floors in the area. If there's an area above you and an area below you, it is nice to look at the follow ball to know where it's at. You also have like basic side missions where you'll be talking to the residents. You have to go talk to them, accept the mission. They'll send you somewhere, go have you do something. Usually there's some kind of follow-up mission, and they're their own self-contained stories. I will say the cool thing about these extra side missions is they do seem to have a valuable impact in New LA. Like, you can see lasting changes based on your decisions and your choices while you are playing through these missions. Occasionally you will encounter like new alien races, and they might start hanging around New LA. Sometimes if you make the wrong decision, then one of the characters will just die. Like, not a main important character, but an NPC will die and you'll never see them again. And so there is lasting impressions with these side missions, which is not like most games. In most games, I've kind of just been trained to ignore these side quests because they're self-contained. Yeah, some might have some cool stories, but usually I skip the dialogue because I just don't care. And in 10 minutes, is it really going to matter in the long run? But in this game, it kind of does have that lasting effect. And you are making a lot of choices. Usually they're just simple yes or no. Now, we haven't even talked about like the characters in this game yet, but you're basically playing like this silent protagonist, and people will ask you to make decisions. Your character does not speak, though. They do not have a voice actor that will say these lines. It'll just say like, hey, do you want to intervene and help this guy out, or do you want to wait and see what happens? And based on your decisions, I think they do have some valuable impact in how this side mission plays out. And it also has an impact in your affinity to your crew members. And this leads me to the final mission that you will be doing a lot of in this game, are these affinity missions. Basically, there's no like solid main cast of characters. I mean, there is, but not like in a traditional Xenoblade game. In this game, you're eventually going to have access to like 20 different party members, or crew members, if you will, and you can choose to take these with you on missions. As you play through missions with them, as you respond in ways that they like, you are going to build up affinity with them, and this gives you like combat perks when you are using these characters. This also unlocks affinity missions missions, which lets you basically like learn more about this character, and each of your crew members have their own individual motives and plot lines, and you can help them with that if your affinity is strong enough with them. And these affinity missions also felt rather meaningful. Yeah, the side and the affinity missions aren't as crucial as the main missions, but they are more impactful than you would expect. Still though, I think I just prefer the way that the numbered Xenoblade games do this, where the character growths and motivations and how you learn more about these characters, it's all tied in through the actual main mission. And so none of this stuff is really missable if it's a part of the main mission. If it's a part of the side mission, some of these characters just end up being rather forgettable. And because you're really only going to be taking 3 of these party members at a time, you're not going to spend a ton of time with each individual character. I mean, there are, like, I do think there's maybe 17 different crew members that you can unlock and take with you on missions, and that is a lot of crew members, and so odds are a majority of them are going to end up falling by the wayside. That being said, I kind of set out to get maximum affinity with all of the crew members because I wanted access to all of those affinity missions. Gameplay wise, it probably would have made more sense for me to specifically pick out 3 of my favorite crew members and just stick with them for the whole game, because if you're trying to split up the gear and the affinity with all of these playable crew members, then it starts becoming less meaningful. Like the resources are getting more spread out. Now, that being said, all of your crew members, once you have unlocked them, will start accruing XP and battle points, even if they're not a part of your team. Now, battle points are what you use to basically like upgrade your abilities, both active and passive. One of my complaints about this, though, is if you have not unlocked that specific crew member, they do not acquire battle points until you do unlock them. And so if you get a crew member at the end of the game that you really like, which happened to me, they only start with like 80 battle points, and you aren't able to really upgrade their abilities unless you do a certain level of grinding. And so I just felt like the character development was not as impactful as the other Xenoblade games, which is one of the things that I really enjoyed about the Xenoblade games. Like, when I think of the main character of Xenoblade 1, like Shulk is an awesome character. Or Xenoblade 2, you got Rex. Xenoblade 3, you got Noah and Mia, and these characters are memorable, and they have these whole character arcs and growths. In this game, your main character is silent because they wanted you to kind of customize your character, create them how you want them to be. But the problem with that is they don't get their own story, really. Like, you are not the main character of Xenoblade Chronicles X. That would definitely be Elma, and to a slightly lesser extent, Lyn. Now, don't get me wrong, like, you do encounter other characters that have some amount of character growth. Lao is another one that you get to see a lot of, but like, I want my character to have a lot of growth. I want to be the cool one with the epic main story. I don't want to be the silent person who either nods yes or no when Elma defers to you. That might just be a me problem, though. Now, the other reasons that I like Xenoblade Chronicle games are present here. Like, I really like the epic world building in Xenoblade Chronicle games, and I definitely like the creature designs in Xenoblade Chronicles games, and this game certainly has both of those in spades. I loved exploring this mysterious planet Mira, especially when you get access to one of these mechs called Skells, and you get access to fly around. Like, that really opens up the planet. That's not to say that traveling on foot was bad or anything like that, but it just really kind of gives you that scope once you finally do unlock that extra traversal option. And the creatures in this this game are so cool and giant. And the interesting thing about this game is, in a normal open world type of situation, you have level selections. Like, usually the area next to your main base has like weaker enemies, and then the farther you spread out from your main base, the stronger enemies get. But this game has everything so intermixed. Like, at the beginning of the game, you are going to be encountering these like giant beasts that are like level 50 and they can take you down with one swing. And then like at the end, quote unquote, end difficulty areas that you are really probably going to be exploring at the very final part of the game, you have like guys that are like level 5 and 10. And so it's just interesting how intermixed the difficulties are in this game. And I would say that's also true in terms of like the recommended levels for these missions. You'll be encountering missions that you probably should not be accepting until you're like level 40, and at the same time you'll also be encountering missions where the recommended level is like 5. And so it is kind of cool that you get to almost like customize your difficulty in terms of like what type of tasks you're willing to take on in what order. This does make navigating and exploring Mira a very dangerous task though, because yes, you will be encountering a bunch of big scary monsters who would probably want to eat you if they get you in their sights, which can be frustrating at times when you're just trying to collect materials, or you're just trying to kill this one guy that's your level, and then this big boss who is just on patrol in the area comes up and wipes you out. It is frustrating. It does not feel good. But what does feel good is when you take the time to build up your character, understand the combat, level up, and once you finally do put in the work, you can return, and that guy who was kicking your butt at the beginning of the game, you could just blast him and blow him up in your overpowered skull. And so that's what I like about RPGs, is getting that sense of growth, getting that sense of feeling like a lowly worm to a powerful god. And that's why I kind of have a problem with games that scale the level of the enemies to your level, is you don't really get that sense of progression. And this game certainly delivers on that progression. And I guess this leads me to combat. And in terms of combat, it is most like Xenoblade Chronicles 1, I would say. You have your arts at the bottom. You're going to be using the D-pad to toggle those arts. There's different positions that you want to take advantage of. For instance, I kind of built my character to be more of like a rogue, where you're going to be dual wielding these daggers and stabbing guys in the back. And the cool thing about this game is there is a ton of customization. Like, if you're playing Xenoblade Chronicles 1, Shulk is like a sword wielder, and that's all he's ever going to be. In this game, if you wanted to build more like a support ranged type of character, you can do that. Or if you wanted to build a big tanky in your face guy, you can do that as well. The customization in that aspect is pretty cool, although it is a little complicated to first wrap your head around. At least it was for me, maybe not for you smarties out there. And so I built my character like a rogue, and so a lot of my abilities had bonuses when I was attacking from behind the enemy. So positioning matters. It also has the typical, you break an enemy and then you can topple them, which like makes them fall over and stunned for a little while. A good way to gain affinity with your party members is they will ask you to use a certain type of ability, and if you use it, then you'll get a little bonus and in affinity. You'll also very frequently get this circle that is right in front of your screen, and it will slowly shrink down, and if you press B at the correct time, then you will heal. You'll like slightly heal up yourself and your party members. As you are going through the combat and the combat gets more and more intense, this circle goes faster and faster, and so you have to be ready to time that B press with these buttons. You also have overdrive, and overdrive basically just demolishes the cooldowns to all your abilities, so you can just use them over and over and over again. Another interesting thing about these arts is you actually have the ability to completely bypass these cooldowns. It is a certain resource, mana-like resource that you'll be using to bypass these cooldowns, but they are very generous with this resource, and it refreshes all the way back to 100% every time you initiate a new combat. And so it is very easy to just spam the same art ability over and over again if that's the route that you want to take, because you can do that for a long time before that resource runs out. Now, scale combat is pretty similar to land combat, except you are using extremely powerful abilities that can just blow up weaker enemies. The cooldowns are a lot longer than when you're just doing regular melee hand-to-hand combat, and your scale is going to be attacking a lot slower in terms of the arts as well, but it is a lot more powerful. And so for once you do finally unlock scales, you'll probably be sticking to scale combat for the majority of the game after that. I don't know, this game didn't really have an interesting system like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3, where you're kind of like using the whole party and you're like trying to chain together combos. It didn't really have anything too complicated like that. Essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the maximum time of overdrive as possible. Certain abilities will like extend that overdrive for you. And so there are builds out there like online that you could potentially customize your character so that you have just infinite overdrive. So you're going to be customizing your character and your arts, but you're also going to be upgrading your party members, your crew members' arts as well, in addition to gear. And so you can probably start seeing why, if you're trying to maintain like almost 20 party members, you can see why it might get a little overwhelming trying to stay on top of upgrading all of their arts and their passive abilities and gear. It can be quite a lot. And so in hindsight, I probably would have just picked 3 crew members that I really like and just built my party around them so I don't have as much to stay on top of. It does have like an auto build feature in terms of your gear. Some of this gear looks really goofy. It does give you the ability to kind of like to customize your character's appearance based on the gear that you've unlocked if you don't like the appearance of the gear that it automatically sets to you or has the best stats. By the end of the game, you probably do want to get to the point where you can start picking and choosing your own gear rather than relying on the auto build, but for the majority of the game, it suited me just fine. I will say that one of the main things that like separates the combat in this game than other Xenoblade games is your character can toggle between melee weapons and ranged weapons. And so I never really played a Xenoblade game where I'm using a ranged weapon, because most of the main characters that you're going to be playing as in the other Xenoblade games do not have access to ranged weapons. Noah, you can kind of change the class to do that, but otherwise you're pretty much sticking to your melee weapon. So it is interesting just shooting enemies with like assault rifles in a Xenoblade game, but it is kind of cool that you can like toggle between the two different weapons depending on what your needs are. You also have the ability to target different appendages, so if you're like trying to get a specific drop or you don't want an enemy to use a certain attack, you can like target their legs first or their tail first, depending on what their needs are. I didn't really mess around with this appendage toggling option too much, if I'm being completely honest. I pretty much just started attacking them wherever it automatically started targeting them. But if you are being really strategic, if you're looking for a specific drop, that is an option. So the main plot of this game is you're actually looking for this giant object that broke off the white whale, this being your giant ship that you rode to Mira on. It contains the life hold, and the life hold basically contains a ton of humans that are in stasis, and so you're trying to rescue them. While you're exploring Mira, you're trying to find out where the life hold went. And so one of your main tasks as you're exploring Mira is to activate these probes. And the world of Mira, the map of Mira, is broken up by these hexagonal areas, and many of these hexagons have probes that you can plant. And so the probes, the idea of it is it reveals parts of the map. Think of them kind of like the towers in Breath of the Wild that reveal sections of the map for you. These also act as nifty fast travel options, so you'll definitely want to activate as many of these probes as possible, as early as possible, because you can also attach things to these nodes which automatically gather resources for you. You're dealing with 2 resources in this game. You're dealing with like your currency, your basic currency, and then a resource called Miriam. Miriam you can use to unlock new potential gear to buy, but you can also use this to refuel your skills. You're trying to strategically place these nodes so they're connected and you maximize the resource gathering process as much as possible. It sounds more complicated than it is, but it is a really nice incentive to go around and activate as many of these probes as you possibly can. Like, it feels meaningful because you are unlocking fast travel options, you are revealing parts of the maps, but you're also passively gaining resources as you do this. And I mean, there are other tasks for these hexagons. Some of them do not have probes. Some of them are, hey, go gather this resource, or hey, go defeat this particular enemy in this hexagon. So as you can see, if you're trying to 100% complete this game, you will be busy for a very, very long time. Not just thinking about these hexagons and these tasks, but also just trying to do all of these different missions that are available to you. And we haven't even talked about achievements. Now, I'm not much of an achievement hunter. I do play on Switch a lot, which does not have like a built-in achievement system, but this game has its own independent achievement system, and so it is kind of fun when I defeat a certain amount of enemies or I gather a certain amount of materials and it says, hey, you just unlocked an achievement, and not that big of a deal, but if you are trying to 100% complete this game, that's another task for you to go after. The main enemies in this game that you'll be playing against are, it's basically like a group of different aliens called the Ganglion. And I cannot get over that alien name because I always think of a particular episode of Futurama where Fry gets worms. And so the crew shrinks down, they go into Fry's body, and they have to tickle this part of inside his body called a ganglion, and it's spelled exactly the same in everything. And so there's a specific quote in that Futurama episode where Leela says, "Don't even think about tickling that ganglion." And so whenever I'm encountering these ganglions, I always think of, don't think about tickling that ganglion. It is kind of interesting having all these different races of aliens as a part of this ganglion that are trying to eradicate humans. And for the majority of the game, like, you don't even know why. You're just trying to survive on this mysterious planet, and all these aliens just hate you for no apparent reason. It is kind of cool that it's almost like Star Trekian, where you are befriending all these other races of aliens that start hanging out in New LA with you. And we haven't even like talked about Chapter 13, which is basically like its own DLC mission that is, it feels pretty separate to the main gameplay of the first 12 chapters. And I'm not going to go into spoilers or anything like that. To be honest, I got rather frustrated with this game trying to beat the final boss of Chapter 12. The main reason of that is because you kind of get soft locked into trying to beat the final boss before Chapter 13 if you're not prepared. Basically, like, if your skills get destroyed during this last boss fight, there's no way to go back and repair your skills and try to level up if you are underprepared. You are pretty locked in unless you want to go way back to like a previous save that you made. And so take this from me, if you do plan on playing this game, definitely make a separate save before you hop into the final boss of Chapter 12, because you will be soft locked into it. And so by the time I reached Chapter 13, when I finally overcame that obstacle, I was feeling rather frustrated, and so I kinda zipped through the majority of Chapter 13. But I think I was a lot more engaged with the main story in Chapter 13 compared to the main story of Chapters 1 through 12. It felt a lot more like the Xenoblade games that I know and love. Definitely difficult combat-wise, especially if you played through it like I did, where you just are going from main mission to main mission, though. You are probably going to be underleveled and underprepared gear-wise. Overall, I mean, I spent around 50 hours playing this game, and so there's definitely like something about it that kept me coming back, but I just didn't enjoy it as much as I do the other Xenoblade games, which I know this is definitely some people's favorite Xenoblade Chronicles game, and I'm not here to to like bash your opinion or anything like that. I just think I prefer the other Xenoblade Chronicle games compared to this one for reasons I stated earlier. I think I'm going to give this game a 3 out of 5. Still a good game. I still played around 50 hours of it, but it is not in the amazing tier that I would place other Xenoblade Chronicles games. Still super happy that I was able to get on the Nintendo Switch though. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!
What? Tatsu not taste like chicken? Tatsu tastes like poop and poison! Tatsu tastes like poison poop!